Benji has to catch a fish first.
Welcome back to the channel. My name is Benji. I'm at Sav-On Tackle once again with my friend Anthony. This is part 4 of a Bluefin Tuna fishing series. And so today we're going to be talking about a very, very popular technique that's almost an essential aspect of trying to catch a bluefin tuna, and that's going to be the knife jigs. So Anthony, if you can take it away and tell us about what are knife jigs and why are they so effective and why are they so important to have with you when you go on a boat?
Yeah, we have a variety of jigs, and everybody that's getting on these trips, they're reading and hearing about all these crazy jigs they have to get. It's pretty simple. There's no wrong answer. We're seeing a huge range in colors and sizes and techniques used. But in all reality, you just have to have a jig that's going to sink quick enough and get in that tuna's face. What we're looking for is going to be to fish the conditions. So what I usually recommend to my customers is grab a jig and grab a variety of sizes. It's 100% getting a jig down into that zone fast enough when the captain stops the boat and having it vertical.
So I guess what I'm hearing from you is knife jigs are particularly effective because of how fast they can get down into the zone.
That's a huge part of it, yeah. The profile, that long skinny profile, it's going to kick off some vibration, but it's going to sink a lot faster than some of the flat falls and some of the slow pitch jigs that are maybe the same weight but a whole different shape. So 300 grams isn't equal across the board, 400 grams isn't equal across the board. The way that jig sinks has a lot to do with how well they're going to get bit. And you'll see the weight disbursement on jigs, and one side flat, one side rounded. You'll get different actions out of them, but they're basically going to shimmy, creating that vibration, and they're going to fall very, very rapidly. And that's what we're looking for. You know, we have two different jigs here. They're both 400 gram. They both have a slightly different action, but both of these jigs have been very, very effective the last couple of years. You know, this one has a nice flat back. This one has a ridge that runs down the back. So the way it's going to flutter a lot more than say this one will. But both of them have been very, very successful. The Nomad Streaker Jig, incredible jig. We're hearing and seeing a lot of reports on it. The Ocean Legacy Deep Contact, that's another really good jig that's been getting bit. There's a lot of jigs. The Mustad Rip Roller, the Daiwa SK, the infamous Daiwa SK jig is very, very simple. This is the 300 gram. So for size comparison, the Nomad Streaker Jig and the 320 versus the Daiwa SK jig and the 300. So you can see it's a much, much shorter jig, a little wider, has a slightly different action, but in reality, it sinks really fast. It's that compact body, I think, that those fish just key in on and they like. Maybe they're chasing smaller sardines down there and it just matches that profile. But these jigs are sinking so quickly, it's a reaction bite. Anything that's sinking down past their face fast enough is going to give you a good opportunity. But at the same time, if you sink down past their face too fast or you go way too deep, that's going to be something that you're out of the zone and you're not capitalizing on that fishing time when he stops you on a school. But if the captain's, hey, we're seeing fish in that 300, 350 foot range, you want to make sure your jig is spending time in there. So maybe you go down, if they're staying at 300, go down to 320, 350, wind back up through it a little bit and then drop it back down and try to keep your jig up and down in that zone till it scopes out. Wind it in and start over. But definitely spending that time in that zone. You don't have to wind it all the way up every time and then drop it all the way back down every time, because once you get out of that zone, you've stopped fishing all the way to the top of the boat. So we just want to make sure we're as much time fishing as possible.
So as you can see, there's just such a wide range of different options available from different companies. So I'll leave that information in the description below. And basically what I'm hearing is it's just about getting into that zone. And I think Anthony's already touching upon this, is there's different weight classes. Is there a range that people should be prepared for? So you want a variety, and if you're just starting out in terms of how many grams, you know, what should one be equipped with just for the bare minimum for a newcomer that's just getting started?
Yeah, so it's just like picking sinkers for your rockfish trip or anything else. Wind and current are going to be the biggest factor in what size we need. If there's wind or more current, we are going heavier. If there's less wind, less current, we're going down lighter. But what we want to see is a good variety. When I'm packing up my jigs for the trip, I'll pack anywhere from like a 60 gram jig all the way up to a 400 gram jig. You know, a 60 gram jig, something in this style that we can either, this is a little bigger than 60, but something in this style, whether it's a Daiwa Zakana, a Colt Sniper from Shimano, or the Mega Bait, anything that is in that bait fish pattern. that we can cast at a foaming school of tuna, or we could sink down vertically and wind up in maybe 100 to 150 feet of water. And just based on how deep we want to get it, we'll ramp up the weight, you know, so it might start at like a 120 if we're going deep. We might even go up higher to like a 170. Some of the classics have been working really well also. Salas 6X Junior in the chrome, that has been something that has been a really, really good jig recently, especially on that day bite. Just has a great sink rate, has enough flutter, and we're all very familiar with how effective those yo-yos are on the yellowtail. It's the same thing with these bluefin. We're not winding it up quite as aggressively. A lot of it's being hit on the sink, but if maybe there's not a lot of current, the fish are sitting down deeper, they're being a little more picky, grab one of those bright shiny jigs and just toss it out and see what happens. Sometimes you're that guy doing something different and boom, you're bit. Other than that, you know, the biggest thing that we're seeing is rigging. We're seeing so many different combinations of rigging, and it's really up to you guys to determine what's best for you and your setup and what you'd like to deal with. You know, we're seeing where we're rigging the jig with both hooks on the bottom. That's probably the safest way to do it. You know, the fish are swallowing this, they're getting a hook stuck in them somehow. We try to make the hooks so that they go against each other. That way, no matter which way the pressure's being put on it, a little bit of pressure usually kicks them both out, and you have double opportunities to get one of those hooks snagged into that fish. Another way we're seeing it rigged up, one on top, one on bottom. If your jig's coming out of the package, a lot of times these jigs are not coming ready for tuna. Most of these jigs were designed for rockfish. They were designed for grouper. They were designed for reef fish in various parts of the world. We're on a unique bite where we're using these things for tuna. If you go to any other part of the world where they use them for tuna, they usually have specific ones rigged for tuna, or they're doing the same thing we are. They're buying them and they're pre-rigging them themselves for the species they're catching. But just be very cautious of what jigs you're buying and how they come rigged. The stock hooks might not be enough for it, or the leaders that come on those stocked hooks might not be enough. So a bluefin, a big 200-pound bluefin, you might be on that fish for a while. Their teeth chewing on that line, it just might not hold up, and that's where the heartbreaks happen.
And I think, again, Anthony would say the same thing. If you're in a tackle shop, whatever shop you're at, we always say the same thing in every single video. Support your local shop, whether it's Sav-On or somewhere else. Bottom line is, when you're in that shop and you're picking up one of these jigs, ask someone at the store, ask Anthony or whoever you work with, do you recommend this with the stock hooks, or should I pre-rig it, and they can help you out.
Exactly. But I do recommend, if you can, get to a shop that does some soldering for you, silver solder on some solid rings, eliminate the need for the split rings if you can. And it's not the fact that the split rings aren't strong enough. We're seeing, you know, some heavy duty split rings straighten out. And it's not because they're not strong enough, it's because the line is getting wedged in between where the split rings connect, and that's what's opening up, and that's where that pressure is going. If you take just the split ring and everything works perfect, those split rings are more than strong enough. But as soon as that line gets caught on the corner where we open up a split ring, that's where we're seeing the flexing happening and then those split rings coming undone. And that ultimately can lead to heartbreak as well. We pay a lot of money to get on these trips. So we try to eliminate as many of the obstacles to getting that fish to the boat as possible. So what we're recommending is a soldered ring. I know a lot of the shops are starting to do the soldering in shop, but it's pretty simple. We're getting a nice clean connection on the solder. So we just want to make it so it's as minimal of any kind of bump or obstacle on there as possible. And then we're just looping the assist hooks onto those soldered on rings. And then up here, same kind of deal. We'll have a big ring. We'll loop on the hook, and then we'll tie off to this ring here. That way your jig has nice good action, and then it's harder for the tuna to get any kind of leverage to twist those hooks out as you're pulling on them. Especially when they're doing those big circles, sometimes they'll roll side to side and change the point of the angle that you're pulling on them, and that rope definitely, it'll twist up multiple times before it allows them to get any kind of pressure on it. The other thing, daytime, you know, the light is getting down a lot deeper. Obviously it's daytime, so there's usually sunlight. So we might rig some of these jigs with a 100-pound. We're doing about a 2.5 foot leader. And the reason we're doing that is so that you could still tie on whether you're using mono or braid, you don't need to go fluoro, there's no real point in it, but you could tie straight braid to here, you could tie mono to here, whatever your main line is gonna be, tie off to here. And then this is going to be the point if they swallow this jig and it's stuck down in their throat or stuck in their mouth somewhere, they'll be chewing on a solid 100-pound mono or fluoro, whatever you want to rig it with. We typically just rig it with mono because it's, you know, the most cost effective and still very effective and efficient in pulling on these fish. So we'll typically just go straight mono. We'll use a chafing spring. We'll use a long sleeve crimp. We'll crimp it in 3 spots so it has a nice solid crimp. We'll burn the tag end on the end there. That way it flares out, and if you do get any kind of slippage on there, that'll usually stop it. I have seen in a very extreme case where somebody forgot to crimp their crimps at all, and they just had that tag end burnt and they still got their fish in. I don't recommend it.
Was his name Benji Kim?
No. Benji has to catch a fish first. I can edit that out.
That's going in the video.
Just burn that tag in, that way it doesn't slip through if you didn't quite get a good enough crimp on it. And then same thing on this end. What we're doing is we're grabbing a swivel that's rated at least 220 or higher on the breaking point. But more importantly than that, I'm looking at the size of swivel. I want to have something big enough that's going to give good rotation on that jig. That way my braid's not getting all twisted up and creating a weaker braid up in your reel. Because if your braid's super twisted up, that really weakens the strength of it. It's also going to make it more likely to get tangled as well. So we just want to make sure, keep those line twists out of the line, have a good swivel in between. You can use a ball bearing if you want. These swivels seem to be holding up more than fine. Chafing spring, and then same deal on this one. The longer sleeve crimp, we're crimping it in 3 spots and burning the tag end. We've been developing it, working with the crew, working with the different boats, and working with the customers, and this combo seems to work really good. This is probably the safest combo right here, having both hooks on one end, couple feet of leader to a swivel. And what I say by safest, we have seen a couple times now where maybe the deckhands, they go to help you with your tuna after they gaffed it and brought it on board, and the tuna's got, the hook down here in his face, and this is now flopping around as they're trying to handle that tuna and manage it, and this hook is getting them stuck in the hand. So, but that's one of the reasons I love using these hooks that you can just pull through. So these things are coming in the package. Comes in the package just like that. It's going to have a nice little loop on it. It's tied off. These are some things we're looking for in our assist hooks, okay? So we were looking for either assist hooks that have a solid ring on it that we can solder onto the jigs directly, and it'll come out looking like this, where there's a solid ring, it solders it on, and that gives it a good range of motion, and then it's pulling on that solid ring down there. And then it's tied off. So we want to make sure when the line goes through the eye of the hook, it then has a big bulky knot that prevents that from pulling through. If you do hook a big one and you wind up pulling on it for a long time and you're pulling harder than you would normally expect to. So same kind of deal, big overhand knot. The tag end is then whipped down onto the shaft of the hook. And then Mylar, no Mylar, that's up to you guys. Owner makes some really, really good assist hooks. We've caught a ton of fish on them. No Mylar. We've also got some different brands, whether it's Mustad or the BFT. The BFT is a newer brand. They're using BKK hooks, so some of the best hooks in the industry for this stuff. And he's getting them with some glow-in-the-dark skirting, which is kind of cool. So for the guys that don't have a glow-in-the-dark jig, or like say you have a sardine jig like this with no glow, you can charge the tails up and you can drop them down and still get a little bit of color down there at night, or fish it during the day and it becomes a little more universal, That's what we're looking for, some key characteristics. Just a thick enough gauged hook. We're looking for something with thick enough line, and we want that to be tied off when it passes through the eye of the hook. That way it's nice and secure. We try to carry a wide variety, different things catch different people's attention. So there's nothing in this lineup that has not worked this year. One of the things I'll do is I'll match up. I don't want to put a long assist hook on the top and a long assist hook on the bottom where they can tangle in the middle. That way when you get bit, you don't hook a fish because your hooks are tangled. So we want to make sure that if you are going to go with this route, the assist hooks cannot in any way touch each other. I'm taking these 2 hooks and I'm pulling down on them, trying to get them to touch. There's no way these 2 hooks are going to touch or tangle in any way. So that's huge. As this hook is going down there, we want those hooks free swinging. We want those fish, when they hit it, that hook is just going to naturally go right into the position and it's going to hook them just like that. Colors, you'll hear a lot of people talk about Katy Perry color. The Katy Perry color is very simple. I don't know, maybe it's because of her crazy hair. I don't know all the different hair colors she's got going on, but this is the Katy Perry color, the classic right here. It'll be the pink, going into silver, going into blue. This one here will also be considered that Katy Perry. I've bought some jigs for the shop that are, you know, similar, maybe purple top with a pink belly. That color has been effective too. And then you'll see variations of it where it has the glow stripes in between, and it's got that pink belly going into that blue top, a little bit of silver incorporated in there. So there's all kinds. You've got the candy cane color, you know, that white and red. That's been a pretty effective one also. The Mustad Rip Roller. This is a jig you're definitely going to hear about. It's definitely been super effective. It sinks very fast, and it has a pretty aggressive little wobble, a very tight wobble, so it creates a lot of vibration down there. And you know, a lot of these bluefin, they're eating based on vibration, right? They pick up the vibration on their lateral line. They're not really seeing these jigs down in 300 feet of water as they go ripping past their face. So all they're feeling that vibration, and they hunt sardines and they hunt mackerel, they hunt other fish at night, and that's how they do it, is that vibration. So jigs like this that make a lot of noise, a lot of commotion while they're going down, but still fall fast, have been super effective.
Anthony, for the nighttime jig bite, how essential would you say is having a glow in the dark?
That's a tough one because it's all about spending time in the zone, right? So I'm getting some boats that tell me, oh, this jig is the best. And then another boat will tell me, oh, this jig's been getting bit better than all the other ones. And they're all fishing in the same zone, so how can they have conflicting reports on what jig is the hottest jig? The glow in the dark, sometimes I see the super bright charged glow in the dark just not get bit, and it might take them a while to get bit, and I think that's just because once it starts to dim down a little bit, it'll start getting bit better. But you will see jigs with absolutely no glow on it getting bit right now, and that's one of the things. It comes down to that vibration more than anything. I'm a firm believer in that. If you get a jig moving and creating some vibration and creating some commotion down there in that zone, and you spend enough time in that zone, you're gonna get bit. I don't think it hurts to have a little bit of the glow. I don't necessarily go and supercharge it, you know, but if you have it rigged up and it's sitting outside in the evening or sitting outside all day in the sunlight, I don't see why it would hurt it, you know.
So it sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's a classic example of lures catch more fishermen than fish sometimes.
Sometimes.
And so I think bottom line is there's such a wide range of lures that work and that get bit. The key thing is are you getting it into the zone? And I feel like maybe the most successful fishermen using these jigs are able to do that on a consistent basis.
Absolutely. Last year we did a night, I did seven different jigs on the same night, and they were different colors, different sizes, different brands. More different brands and sizes, but you know, there was a 300, a 320, there was a 280, but there was 7 different jigs, and I had 7 different fish. So and that was what I was trying to prove that night, was that it had less to do with the brand of jig, and it had more to do with spending the right amount of time in that zone. You'll learn what the captains want to do. Some captains will drive, they'll get on top of the school and they'll throw it hard in reverse to stop the boat and tell everybody to drop the jigs down. The boat's still moving, you know, so we want to be the first one in, we want to get down there, but if your jig scope's way out, you're not going to be in them. So you want to give it a second, either let that boat settle in for a second and then start dropping it down, or find out how that captain is positioning the boat and throw your jig up so that it's coming down. So if they're driving and they pull it hard in reverse, maybe fire up off the bow and let it swing down. If they're just getting on it and stopping like they would on a kelp patty, then you might want to go to the back corner and throw it up swell and let it swing down. Don't overhand toss it. You don't have to do a long toss with it or anything. Just an underhand little toss carefully and getting it out there. If you're not comfortable doing it, wait until that boat comes to a complete stop or slows down enough where you can maintain that vertical action and get you into that zone. But really, it's just a race who gets into that zone first, you know, and if you're dropping down too early, you end up in the tangle in the corner. So you want to make sure, just settle in, give yourself that extra minute, let that tuna fever get through your system for a second, take a deep breath, and then drop it down. It doesn't take that long, and those fish are usually still under that boat pretty good when it comes to a quick rest.
Well, I've learned a lot about this. This is actually something that I'm very, very new to, so I've learned a lot. And I just want to thank you, Anthony, so much for making the time to make these videos. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate every one of you guys, and until next time, tight lines.